But anyway, what are we going to be doing today?
Well, we're going to be going over some very special tier lists today. The first one, I would say, what you mentioned it to me earlier, is a band after my very own dear heart, and that is the legendary band Queen.
Yep. What our favorite one of our favorite bands of all time, Queen. So without further ado, let's get right into the tier list. And here we have it set up. So there were like a multitude of different tier lists, but this one was the one that actually had all the proper studio albums to choose
Ooh, yep.
from. So let's actually zoom in a little bit so that way we're not just swamped by advertisements from Lowe's.
There we go.
You
Get what
can
you need at Lowe's.
you can find what you're looking for at the Home Depot. All right, that looks much better. All right. So so before we get into the tier list, explain your experience with Queen. What got you into them, and how long have you been a fan?
My experience with Queen is basically I can remember as being like 2 or 3 years old. Every time I would go out with my parents, they would, I would request like a tape, but this is like they have the greatest hits cassette tape, which they would always play in the car, and I pretty much just grew up listening to them ever since then. And I'm just obsessed. I think Freddie Mercury to me is the greatest frontman in music. He's got the most unique range. They have the most unique sound of any band I've heard, and it's sad when I heard because I was only 5 years old when he passed away. We sadly lost him, but that hasn't. I've just been listening to ever since then, and I never looked back. I've been have all their albums on CD, and hopefully pretty soon I will have them all on vinyl.
As I was listening to a Talk Is Jericho podcast, where Jericho was interviewing a Queen tribute band called the Killer Queens. It's an all-female Queen tribute band, and I think it was their front lady that best described Queen as classical disguised as rock music.
I have to agree with that statement. They really experimented with a lot of sounds back what a lot of bands didn't do back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
They were bold. They were not afraid to take any risks, and they introduced a lot of genres like progressive, theatricality, opera, and just it worked for them.
Absolutely. My introduction to Queen was when I was in high school. The very first song I heard from them was a song called "Killer Queen," and it's actually one of my favorite Queen songs. Then I discovered Bohemian Rhapsody, and I was like, "What is this?" And it took me a while to get through their discography, and thanks to a little movie called Bohemian Rhapsody, I'll get into my opinions on that film a little bit later. It sort of reignited my love for Queen, and it got me to get all their albums. I'm still trying to get them all on vinyl, but I have them all on MP3.
I have them all on CD because my girlfriend got all three of like the CD sets they had for
Mhm.
like for Christmas.
Oh wow!
So I love her for it, and I thank her for that because I just can't.
What if you have if you if you have seen it? What's your opinion on the movie Bohemian Rhapsody?
Um, Bohemian Rhapsody. I mean, I love it for what they tried to do with it. I mean, they did the best they could. I mean, yeah, some of the editing was kind of choppy, but I overall thought the it was well acted, and obviously the big highlight was there's two big highlights. Which one is the set pieces when they're performing? It feels like an actual Queen concert,
Mhm.
and of course Rami Malek's Oscar-winning performance as Freddie. It felt like when I went and saw it in theaters like multiple times, and it feels like when I was watching him, it didn't feel like I was watching him playing Freddie. He was Freddie. He did it to a T that almost felt like he almost just came back reincarnated. So, but it could have been a lot better, but it is what it is.
I personally, when upon first viewing the film, I thought it was great. I still think it's an okay movie for what it is. But given the amount of like inconsistencies of when this happen, when that happened, and it kind of became a bit too distracting for me.
Yeah, it did feel a little bit rushed when like they're like, oh, this happened. Oh no, this happened. Like, whew, whoop, there we go, right over there now. Just like a minute later.
The part that bugged me the most, and they showed this in the trailers as well, was like they were recording the song "We Will Rock You," and
that one.
Like it indicated they recorded it in the 80s. Like, no, they recorded it in the 70s. I was like, Freddie didn't have his stash at that time.
That one I did notice a lot. I was like, okay, I watched it the first time and I didn't notice that, but when I watched it again in theater, I was like, wait a minute, this is 82? I'm like, wait a minute, this came out in 1977 on News of the World. What the heck is going on here?
Yeah, and what's strange is that apparently both Brian May and Roger Taylor were involved with the production, so they had a lot of say in this. Why they went in this direction, I have no idea.
No idea.
But... Actually, no, I kind of do know. Rami Malek was originally not slated to be Freddie Mercury. It was supposed to be the guy who played Borat.
Sacha Baron Cohen?
Yeah. And he was wanting to do a more realistic take on how heavy his Freddie's excess life was, but the guys from Queen didn't really want that, so that's why he didn't get the part. And that's and they wanted to paint the picture of Freddie in a much lighter light, I guess.
Make it a little bit more accessible. I mean, I get it.
Yeah. But if anything, it should have been... Bohemian Rhapsody should have been what Rocket Man was for the Elton John film. It wasn't supposed to be historically accurate, even though... And it played off like a musical, and that's what it should have been like to me.
I agree. I agree. Rocket Man is the better made film. It's just that everyone remembers Bohemian Rhapsody more because of the name.
Right. Anyway, so now that we've got that off our chest, let's get right into the ranking of the albums, starting with the self-titled Queen album.
Ooh, this is I feel like this one's a pretty much an underrated gem because a lot of people don't really talk about it.
They don't.
I'm like, there's some actual good songs. I mean, the song that everyone remembers this one is from "Keep Yourself Alive," which honestly is a really good song. But I feel like there's some other better ones like "Liar," "Modern Times," "Rock and Roll," "Jesus," and heck, it even has the pre-prototype version of Seven Seas of Rye.
Oh, and don't forget about Great King Rat.
Oh, I just don't get why this one gets overlooked. I mean, it doesn't have the theatricality that's what they be out in their later 70s albums, but it's a really good damn start.
Yeah, it's a solid Queen album. If anything, it might be their heaviest Queen album.
I would have to go...
Well, one of their heaviest, anyway.
Yeah, I would say if I have to go with their heaviest, we'll probably have to talk about the next album after this.
Right.
If I were to do this one, for a self-titled, I'd probably put it as a B tier. It's a good start.
I would have gone a little higher as like an A tier, honestly, because of how let's make it a high B.
High B, yeah, it's about right because they just started. They haven't found their footing at what they wanted to be at the time, but it's still a good album to this day.
So it's a B plus album essentially.
Oh yeah.
Now we move on to, in my opinion, one of Queen's best albums ever. Queen 2.
This is the one I feel is probably their heaviest album to date. This one I feel is this is like top 5 for me when it comes to the discography. It feels like a slightly darker tone compared to the first album, and it probably has one of the best songs they ever did, which is March of the Black Queen.
The precursor to Bohemian Rhapsody, if you will.
Oh god, can you imagine if they actually did this song live? But sadly, they never did because they felt it was too complicated to play live. They
played part of it whenever they played Bohemian Rhapsody in when Bohemian Rhapsody was had just come out. The part where they do the "So you think you can stop me?" And, that part was they actually put in a part from March of the Black Queen, which was "I move with my left hand, I move with my right." Queen. There's actually in the part where they do the "I see a little silhouette of a man." They do that. They do "Killer Queen." That was very strange.
It is very strange, but this is, like I said, this is top 5 because of what they did. There's other great songs in here. White Queen, As It Began, Loser to the End, Ogre Battle.
Yeah.
And of course, this is probably the one that everyone remembers is Seven Seas of Rye.
Yep. That was their first really big single, if I'm not mistaken. Well, their first minor hit, if anything.
This one is definitely a top A tier album.
If it were up to me, I would put it at like S tier, but I can accept an A tier, like A plus tier.
Like, there you go.
A nice happy medium. So now we're going to move on to their third album that came out the same year as Queen 2, Sheer Heart Attack.
Oh God, yes.
You know what's funny is on a later album, the song Sheer Heart Attack would appear on this album, but we'll get to that. For whatever reason, it's not on this one.
I don't get it either. But Sheer Heart Attack, this is when I think they and
that's when they really started to really experiment with their sound, giving it a much more poppy kind of polish, but at the same time, almost that's when the theatrics were starting to crack in. On a lot of really good tunes on this album, like Killer Queen, obviously. My personal favorite being Flick of the Wrist.
Sheer Heart Attack. This is like I said, this is where they started getting really experimental with their sound. It felt more of a proggy kind of sound, and it opens up with probably one of their best opening songs, which is Brighton Rock, which got featured in Baby Driver.
Oh, that's right.
It's because that's like one of the songs that where the main character and the bad guy are like kind of duking it out over. It's actually really cool. And of course, this has the song you mentioned earlier that got you into them, Killer Queen, which was like their breakout hit.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the other ones? There's Stone Cold Crazy, which is the prototype to all the thrash speed metal songs that came out during the 80s.
Actually, no. I want to make a correction. It was actually Stone Cold Crazy that was my first Queen song ever.
Oh, Stone Cold Crazy is awesome.
And someone's calling you.
And it's a political thing, and I am turning that off.
We can't escape it. So, where do we want to put Sheer Heart Attack? And as mentioned before, another A tier.
I'm torn between S and A because I'm obsessed with this one.
I would put this right underneath Queen 2.
Okay, A's good.
And again, Flick of the Wrist is a damn good song. Kind of tells of what their relationship with the production company was at the time, as they weren't officially signed with a record deal yet. They were actually signed with a production company before they signed with a record deal. That wouldn't come until the next album, Night at the Opera.
Yes. For those who are listening, this is my all-time favorite Queen album. This is one of my top 3 favorite albums of all time. This album is a freaking masterpiece. This is the Queen that everyone gets to know from, with the overtop theatricality, the opera, the classical elements are all full-blown on this album alone.
Let's just straight up to S tier then.
This is freaking S tier, man. This is the quintessential Queen album. It's got a lot of memorable songs. It's got You're My Best Friend, Death on Two Legs.
Death on Two Legs was also aimed at that very same production company.
Yes, it was. And of course, the song that almost everybody and their mother knows, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yep.
It's and what's surprisingly, it's near the end of the album.
Yep.
What's your thoughts about this album?
It's definitely a top tier album for Queen. I'd say it's like their second to best album, personally. We'll get to my personal favorite later on. Yeah. But there are a lot of really good songs on here. my two favorite standouts are the Brian May song 39.
Ooh,
It's
boy.
a very good acoustic song.
It is.
A very good song called Love of My Life. It's
Oh, that is one of Freddie's best compositions ever.
And what's interesting about this song, especially in the movie, they treated it as a love song, and while it technically is, it's actually a breakup song. And Freddie was like, "I wrote this song for you," and while they were still technically together, I'm like, "It's a breakup song. What the hell are you talking about?" He wrote this after the two broke up.
It's like, oh my god.
But they still stayed pretty close to each other.
That is too true. They stayed pretty much close to each other until he died.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, this over, and not to mention it ends with a really kick-ass rendition of "God Save the Queen."
Oh yeah, you're right.
By Brian, I think it was Brian May. I think that was really well done.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, everything about this album is all killer, no filler. And now let's move on to the follow-up, A Day at the Races. This is kind of a tough album for me because there are some really good songs on here, but I kind of find this to be one of Queen's not as memorable albums. Like, in terms of the amount of songs.
I kind of agree with that because I thought it would be the same vein. It's almost, but not as grand as I thought it would be. After going over it again, I mean, there's a couple songs here and there I'll go off of, like "Tie Your Mother Down," "Someone Ready to Love," and "Good Old Fashioned Lover Boy." But other than that, I don't really go back to this album that much.
I mean, to me, there's no such thing as a Queen album, with maybe one exception, but we'll get to that. But this is definitely one of the least memorable, with the exception of a few songs. So either C or D tier. What do you think?
I gotta go with D tier because this one's not very memorable to me at all.
Has plenty of good songs, but the forgettable ones just outnumber the memorable ones.
Sadly.
And now we move on to probably the most one of the most iconic Queen albums, "News of the World."
Oh yes, and it opens up with a doubleheader, which we got "We Will Rock You," which is probably the biggest sports song in history because it has the most simplistic melody, with barely any instruments except for guitar playing. But other than that,
yeah, towards the very end.
so pretty much it. But other than that, it's that much powerful because of Brian May wanting to make a song that everyone can play together.
And then and that's followed up by "We Are the Champions."
Oh, another great song. There's a lots of good. I like this, and of course, the mentioned earlier, "Sheer Heart Attack," which honestly is not on the album the song is named after. But we digress.
Yeah, I actually play "We Are the Champions" like at the end of every New Year's Eve. Like, that's the song that I end every year with and start every year with.
That's a good one to go with, actually. That's actually a pretty good idea.
And I use the live one especially from the '86 live album.
Oh, nice.
I can't remember what is it, live in Wimbledon or something.
The one. Oh yeah, was it during the kind of Magic tour?
Yes.
Yeah, that's Wembley.
Wembley, thank you, not Wimbledon. That's a sport.
Definitely one of the best live performances I've ever seen.
Yeah, Wembley. I keep mixing Wimbledon and Wimbledon. God, what's wrong with me? I'm tired.
We all are.
So, as far as albums go, this is either like a C tier or a B tier for me because
I gotta say that this is like a low B.
Yeah, because there aren't that many songs that I remember off that album as well, but still, because of "We Will Rock You" and "We Are the Champions," it's got to go higher.
Oh, yes.
Which brings us to the last album of the 70s, the Jazz Album.
And surprisingly, this is not a favorite album amongst the Queen members. I think mostly around Roger Taylor and Brian May. I'm still kind of surprised because this is actually a pretty solid album.
It's definitely an acquired taste album, I'll say.
It,
Like you're not gonna like. It's definitely on the weirder side of Queen, in, in terms of releases like Bicycle Race and
Fat Bottom Girls.
well, Fat Bottom Girls is a classic. I was more talking about like the opener.
Oh, Mustafa.
Yeah. By the way, Freddie Mercury is from Zanzibar, right?
Yeah, he's from Zanzibar.
Yeah. Did you know Great Britain actually had a very small war with Zanzibar?
Yeah, actually, I remember reading about that up.
Do you know how long it actually lasted?
How long did it last?
No joke, 38 to 45 minutes.
Oh my! What?
The shortest war in recorded history.
What?
I'm not even joking. Look that up.
Oh my gosh!
But
That's insane. Oh my god!
yeah, this is definitely on the weirder side of Queen, but it also has one of my favorite Queen songs, and probably Brian May's least favorite Queen song, "Don't Stop Me Now."
Oh heck yeah! Right?
It's so
definitely one of
infectious.
It is. It means that melody. That I love how it just starts off all nice and melodic, and it just swells up like 30 seconds in. Bam! Goes skyrockets.
Oh yeah.
So
As far as
this,
ranking goes,
I,
either
I'm torn
either
on
a
this
B
one.
tier or a C tier. What
I
was
think
that?
probably a B.
Okay.
I go back to this one quite fondly.
Would you say it's like better than News of the World or not as good?
I think it's honestly a little bit better than News of the World because there's more songs on here I go back to.
That's fair. Okay. Now we move on to the game. This honestly is probably my least favorite Queen album, honestly. And I'll tell you why.
All right, go ahead.
There are two good songs on there. Another one Bites the Dust and Dragon Attack. All the other songs are absolutely forgettable to me. I do not remember a single one of them.
You don't remember a crazy little thing called Love?
Nope.
Oh my goodness, dude. But I will defend the fact, in my opinion, this is their best. This is probably my favorite '80s Queen album because it's got a lot of songs. If I remember, I'm the opposite. I go back and I remember this fondly. Like, Play the Game, Dragon Attack, which is probably one of their best songs ever.
Mm-hmm.
The One Bites the Dust, Crazy Little Thing Called Love, Don't Try Suicide, Save Me. This is one of the ones I recently just got on vinyl, and I just find it infectious for most of those. But I can understand why, with your opinion, why this is your least favorite. This is the one that is the '80s era is kind of a mixed bag for Queen fans.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't hate any Queen album, despite what I might have said earlier. But this is probably one of my least memorable ones, for me anyway. So
okay, if this was me, I would say A. But since it's your list, I'd probably say a C or a D. Probably.
Yeah, let's do a C. C tier. Like a happy medium between the two.
There we go.
We want to be fair. And now let's move on to the Flash Gordon soundtrack, which was mostly composed by Brian May.
This one, I honestly don't know where to place it because the fact it's a soundtrack album, and it only has like one memorable song on it, which obviously is the Flash theme song.
Yeah.
But honestly, overall, the composure of it is pretty solid for a '80s movie that's cheesy sci-fi. And I haven't seen the movie in a long time. I remember having fond memories of it, and the soundtrack kind of really rocks to it.
Mm-hmm. Even if the movie is it's definitely one of those so bad it's good type of films.
I thought it was actually a pretty good film, but it's so good because it's so cheesy.
Yeah. So, kind of hard to pick. Maybe like a either like
C. I'd probably say C, like a low C.
Low C. Okay, that's fair. Now here's an album that I do not get the hate for, and that
I
is
do.
Hot Space.
Oh, this is my least favorite. This is my least favorite Queen album.
Why?
Okay, I get the hate, and after listening to it quite a few times, I get why. It doesn't feel like a rock album. It feels like if they recorded a disco album, but they postponed it by many years and they were late to the party. This one has the least amount of song. I only remember one song from this album, which is hands down one of their best, which is the duet with David Bowie, Under
Under
Pressure.
pressure.
Other than that, I most of the time forget this album exists because this doesn't sound like a Queen album. It just sounds like a disco album that was just delayed by many years.
I actually find quite a few songs on this album to be pretty decent. Besides Under Pressure, like Dancer, Back Chat, especially. Like Girls All Over the World. There's some hidden gems under there. Some really. This is definitely, in my opinion, the most underappreciated of Queen albums. I mean, I kind of get it, especially with how the production is kind of is a little on the weird side. I think this was produced by that one guy that Freddie was dating at the time. I can't remember his name though.
I forgot to. But if this was my list, I put this near the bottom. I put this near F tier because it's completely forgettable. But if this is you, where would you honestly put this one?
I would put this in at least a low C tier.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Because in my opinion, there's no such thing as a bad Queen album. Like the lowest we've got so far is A Day at the Races, but it's mostly just how forgettable, just not as memorable.
Very true.
And now we move on to the Woiks.
This is a one I feel is underrated because there's some like with your opinion on Hot Spaces. I feel like this one has a lot of good hidden gems on it. Obviously, this has one of the most memorable songs, which especially written by Roger Taylor, which is Radio Gaga.
Oh yeah,
which is commentary about how radio has been evolving and not is beginning that in the recent times back then not beginning as much attention.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want it to die out. It's just that it also has the heaviest song I've ever heard from Queen, which is "Hammer to Fall."
Oh yes,
that riff, that dun, dun, it's just amazing. I Want to Break Free, which had the controversial music video, but honestly, I find the video kind of amusing.
I find it amusing as well, especially with the
drag.
Just cross-dressing, especially with Freddie with wearing the dress and the mustache, and one of the few times where he actually shaves off his mustache for the video, and when he's wearing that singlet.
That's true. And is it me or does Roger Taylor actually look very, very the most effeminate out of the guys in that video?
He does.
He's leaning over the desk, just acting all pretty with just twirling the pigtails and stuff like. Oh my god, that was great.
He makes a pretty hot woman.
Yes, he does. He makes a very good looking. Oh my god. Okay, so this one I really enjoyed this one. So this
could easily go in either B or A.
I guess this is a B one.
High B, or is it better than the self-titled album, or?
No, I don't think it's better than the self-titled.
Is it better than Jazz?
Yes.
All
better
right.
than the Jazz.
Okay. Next up is definitely. It's technically another soundtrack album, but it's a damn good one, and that is Some Kind of Magic.
Okay, earlier what I said about The Game being the best 80s album from them, I take that back. This is their best 80s album by far. Because it has a lot of... This is the one that almost everyone with, because it's associated with probably one of my top 10 movies ever made, Highlander.
Yes!
And this song, I do not skip a single freaking song on this album. And I almost feel like putting this on S tier or A tier because it's got One Vision, Kind of Magic, Who Wants to Live Forever,
Princess of the Universe.
Oh, it's just so good and underappreciated. Oh
I
God, I
there's
don't
so
know what
many,
the.
and this was the last album they toured with.
Yes, it was sadly.
Yep. So I definitely think this is like an A tier. Not quite an S tier, but definitely high up there.
Yes, I think it's better than Sheer Heart Attack in my opinion,
All
but
right,
it's not as good as Queen 2.
agreed. Now we move on to, in my opinion, Queen's best album of the '80s,
And this is my second favorite Queen album, Miracle.
"The Miracle." Thank you. At
There's
first I thought,
another
is it the
one.
musical? The Mir.
This is another. Oh my God, yeah, it's kind of hard to tell with that, but The Miracle, honestly, I feel is probably the most underrated album from these guys. I feel like, I mean, people criticize. I mean, I feel like this song has some really catchy tunes on it, especially with The Miracle, I Want It All, The Invisible Man, Breakthrough, and possibly, in my opinion, the best song on the album, Scandal, because
Scandal, yes.
I'm a sucker for songs that criticize
The
the
media.
media and how they use manipulation and stuff to twist their stories. This song is just perfect on how the Queen takes a jab of all the stuff that was going around, like especially with Freddie at the time.
Hmm. Well, and this also has what would have been Freddie's goodbye song, which is "Was It All Worth It?" But he ended up living on for another 2 years after this one.
And he was kicking that thing's ass to the end.
Yep. So yeah, this is definitely Queen's one of Queen's most underrated albums. I would argue it's an A tier album.
I go with that too.
Is it better? But where would
I
we
don't think
rank
it's
it?
I don't think it's better than any of them, but it's near the bottom. It's at the
Okay.
bottom A.
And now we move on to my favorite Queen album of all time,
And my second favorite album from them as well.
Innuendo.
This is
This
immediately S tier.
S tier. Yep. Every song
God,
on there is just beautifully, beautifully done.
this is a great album to go out on. This was an amazing album for Freddie to go out on. He was fighting to the end. AIDS was taking the best of him, but he did not let it get him down, and he sounds just as good as he did back in Night of the Opera, or even a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. And every track on there is like a gem, like platinum status in my opinion.
I agree.
The title track, you know that flamenco guitar solo
Was
in
it done by the lead
Innuendo?
guitarist from Fish?
What's up?
Wasn't it done by the lead guitarist from Fish?
Actually, yes. Actually, it was the guitarist from Yes, Steve
Oh
Howe.
yeah, yes. I mean, yes. I thought it was Fish. I don't know why I said Fish all of a sudden because I don't know why I said that.
Isn't Fish a punk band?
I think so. They're like experimental, like funk rock or something. I don't know. I don't listen to them that much.
Yep. Let's see.
Of
Innuendo.
course, this one has my second favorite Queen song as well, which is "The Show Must Go On."
That is a heart wrenching song right there.
It is
It's
the
essentially the band's goodbye to Freddie. Essentially.
Yep. I love the message of it. Freddie's just saying, I may be gone, but keep the show rolling without me. Just keep that smile. I may be like in the lyrics itself. My makeup may be failing, but my smile just stays on. That was him to the end.
Yep.
So Innuendo is hands down the best album they have ever done since the Night of the Opera.
In my opinion, the best album they ever put out.
Ugh,
But
it's
it
hard
wouldn't.
to argue.
But it wouldn't be their last one.
No,
That belongs to Made in Heaven.
this is another one I feel is underappreciated because I
What?
used to hate this album when I was younger, but listening to it now, it's actually not bad.
I'll admit, this is actually the one Queen song that's actually hard for me to listen to.
Which one is it?
No, I mean this album is definitely the one that's hard to listen to. Not because it's
Oh,
bad or anything.
Because the fact that he's gone.
Yeah, and the thing is, only 4 songs were ever really recorded when he was alive for this album. The rest are maybe done. I mean, are done with like leftovers from his solo work and some deep cuts.
Well, honestly, it's not.
And of course, there's the
not
song.
bad
And of course, there's the song "Mother Love," his last song. So much so, and so much
It
and it this for the final verse, it wasn't Freddie. It was Brian
no.
May because he died just shortly before finishing this. So yeah, it's I'm not saying this is a bad album, but it's definitely one that's difficult to listen to given the context.
Pretty much, but I mean, uh, I was born to love you. Too much love will kill you. Made in heaven. It is hard because some of us just don't want the fact that he's gone, but he will live on forever through his music. It made a big impact for everybody who wanted. It's just hearing about that. It reminds me of the time I heard he did die. I was only 5 years old.
Oh yeah, you're. I wasn't even a thought when he died.
It was hard. It was all over the news, and obviously, of course, after what happened after he passed, Queen did one big concert together in memory of him. You know, collaborating with a bunch of big artists like, you know, Tony Iommi of Black Sabbath, Axl Rose from Guns N' Roses, Elton John, George Michael.
I believe James Hetfield of Metallica sang on Stone Cold Crazy.
Yes, he did. He did really killer. And Elton John sang an awesome version of "The Show Must Go On." It was an awesome concert, and it gets emotional near the end, so it was really good. So this one, I think is a low. I think this is a low B tier.
Low B tier, yeah.
I think it's a low B because it's actually good. It's underappreciated.
And we're also not including the album they did with Paul Rogers because it's not listed. So this is what we have for our tier list for the Queen albums. We've got A Night at the Opera and Innuendo in S tier. In A tier we have Queen 2, Some Kind of Magic, Sheer Heart Attack, The Miracle. In B tier we have the self-titled album, The Works, the Jazz Album, News of the World, and Made in Heaven. In C tier, we have The Game, Flash Gordon, and Hot Space. And in D tier, A Day of the Races. Are you happy with this? This
It's actually not a bad list. I'm actually kind of surprised we didn't put anything in F tier because honestly, no Queen album deserves to be that low.
No, absolutely not. Even the not so memorable ones aren't bad. It's just
they would just have some gems on that we like, but other than that,
yeah. So, are you generally happy with this one?
I think it's a really good. I think it's a really good list, dude.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we are going to move on from here.
Born to be kings.